Welcome back to Hollow Street, where every shadow holds a story, and every new face might be an old one. Tonight, we're delving into the curious case of number 14, a house that stood empty for years, a silent sentinel on our quiet lane. The locals used to say it was waiting for someone. They just didn't realize it was waiting for someone to return. It all started last spring. The for sale sign, which had become as much a part of the landscape as the old oak tree, was finally gone. In its place, a moving truck hummed, and a new figure was directing the movers. His name was Arthur Finch. He was a pleasant man, a little reserved, with a friendly wave for anyone who passed by. He had kind eyes, neatly parted hair, and a penchant for wearing tweed jackets, even when the weather was a bit too warm for them. The residents of Hollow Street were thrilled. An empty house can cast a long, dreary shadow over a neighborhood. Arthur's arrival felt like a breath of fresh air. He brought life back to number 14, tending to the overgrown garden until roses bloomed again and painting the faded blue door a cheerful cherry red. People would stop to chat with him over the garden fence. He told them he was a retired librarian, seeking a quiet life after years in the bustling city. He loved books, classical music, and the simple pleasure of a well-tended garden. He fit right in. But there's a saying on Hollow Street: the quieter the resident, the louder the secrets. And the first person to hear a whisper of number 14's secret was Mrs. Gable from across the road. She's the unofficial historian of our street, her memory a living archive of every family, every event, every scandal that has unfolded here over the last 70 years. One afternoon, while she was watering her petunias, she watched Arthur Finch retrieve his mail. He had a particular way of walking a slight, almost imperceptible limp in his left leg. He told someone it was an old sports injury. But Mrs. Gable froze, the watering can slipping from her grasp. She'd seen that walk before, that exact same limp. That evening, she pulled out a dusty photo album, its leather cover cracked with age. She flipped through the brittle, monochrome pages, past christenings and street parties, until she found it. A photograph from a neighborhood barbecue in 1968. There, standing by the grill, was a group of men. And among them, a man with neatly parted hair, a kind smile, and yes, a tweed jacket. His name was also Arthur Finch. Mrs. Gable's blood ran cold. It wasn't just a similar name. The man in the photo was the spitting image of her new neighbor. Same face, same smile, same kind eyes. She remembered him clearly. He was a librarian who had moved into number 14 in the mid-60s, a quiet, pleasant man who loved books and gardening, and who had tragically passed away in that very house in the winter of 1970 from a sudden illness. She tried to dismiss it. It had to be a coincidence, a grandson, perhaps. Someone named after a deceased relative, bearing a strong family resemblance. It was the only logical explanation. But when she casually asked the new Arthur Finch about his family a few days later, his answer was unsettling. He smiled politely and said, "Oh, it's just me. I'm the last of my line." The story spread through Hollow Street in hushed tones, over garden fences and cups of tea. Was it possible? Could this new neighbor be the same man? People started watching him more closely. They noticed odd things. He never seemed to receive any mail besides junk circulars. No one ever saw him use a phone or a computer. His car, a vintage model that looked pristine, never left the driveway. His daily routine was as precise as a clock. He'd work in the garden from 9 to 11, read on his porch until lunch, and then disappear inside for the rest of the day. The lights would go on at dusk, but no one ever saw shadows moving behind the curtains. It was as if the house was occupied, but not truly lived in. One of the more skeptical residents, a tech-savvy teenager named Leo, decided to do some digital digging. He searched for any record of the new Arthur Finch. He scoured social media, public records, and online databases. He found nothing. It was as if Arthur Finch didn't exist before he arrived on Hollow Street. There was no digital footprint, no tax records, no credit history, just a void. Then, Leo tried searching for the original Arthur Finch, the one who died in 1970. He found a small, digitized newspaper clipping from the local archives. It was a brief obituary. It mentioned his love of books and gardening, and his untimely death at number 14. But at the bottom of the article was a single, chilling line that the residents had long forgotten. Mr. Finch was a bachelor and had no known living relatives, leaving the house and his extensive library to the town. The house was never claimed by the town. Legal complications, lost paperwork. The reasons were murky. It simply sat, waiting. The atmosphere on Hollow Street shifted from curious to fearful. The friendly waves to Mr. Finch became hesitant. The chats over the fence ceased. Arthur didn't seem to notice. Or if he did, he didn't show it. He continued his routine, smiling his kind, placid smile, tending his roses, his presence a constant, unnerving question mark. The climax came on the anniversary of the first Arthur Finch's death. It was a cold, bleak day in winter, the sky a sheet of gray. A group of neighbors, led by a nervous Mrs. Gable and a determined Leo, decided they needed answers. They gathered across the street, watching number 14. The house was quiet, as usual. A single light burned in the front window. As dusk settled, a strange thing happened. The light in the window didn't flicker or dim. It began to glow, brighter and brighter, with a warm, golden intensity that pushed back the evening gloom. It was a welcoming light, a comforting light, but to the onlookers, it was terrifying. Then, through the illuminated window, they saw a silhouette. It was Arthur Finch. He was standing in his living room, surrounded by bookshelves that reached the ceiling. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, facing the window. As they watched, his form began to change. It wasn't a monstrous transformation, but something far more subtle and eerie. His outline softened, the edges blurring. He became less solid, more transparent, like an old photograph fading in the sun. The details of his tweed jacket, his neatly parted hair, they all seemed to dissolve into the golden light that filled the room. He slowly raised a hand, not in a wave, but in a gesture of quiet farewell, and then he was gone. The light in the window receded, dimming back to a normal, soft glow before extinguishing completely, plunging the house into darkness. The small crowd stood in stunned silence. There was no scream, no panic, just a deep, collective understanding that they had witnessed something that defied all logic. The next morning, the police were called. They entered number 14 with a warrant, expecting to find. Well, they weren't sure what to expect. They found a house that was immaculate. The roses in the garden were perfectly pruned. The cherry red door was pristine. Inside, the furniture was covered in clean, white dust cloths. The bookshelves were full, the volumes arranged with loving care. But there was no sign of Arthur Finch. No clothes in the closet, no food in the pantry, no toothbrush by the sink. It was as if he had never been there at all. The only thing they found out of place was a single, open book left on a small table by the window. It was a collection of classic poems, and it was open to a page with a single verse underlined in neat, faint pencil. For the house has been my body, and my body is my house. And what is a body but a substitute for a home it has long since forgotten? Number 14 stands empty once more. The for sale sign is back, its post sunk into the soft earth of the perfectly manicured lawn. The roses have started to wilt. The neighbors don't talk about Arthur Finch anymore, not openly. But they watch the house, they watch and they wait. Because they know that houses, like people, can get lonely. And sometimes, when a house has a particularly fond memory of a resident, it will do anything it can to bring them back, even if it's just for a little while, even if it has to build a substitute from memory, from dust, and from a longing that transcends time itself. Thanks for joining us on this unsettling stroll down Hollow Street. If you have a story you think belongs here, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, so you never miss a visit. Until next time, watch your neighbors, and be careful what a house wishes for. Stay safe.